in the sky. It's a plane. It's a bird. No, it's a bird. Oh, God. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the channel. It's your boy, D. Wesley, and you are out on Lazy Brown Productions. So today we'll be doing a Tubi adventure where we're going to be down the Tubi hole, and we'll be reviewing Redwall, episode 4. But sit back, relax, and I'll go ahead and get right into it. Okay, so we start the story off today where we see old man Methuselah, after being injured from last episode, is being carried on a stretcher by 2 other monks. And in front of those monks, it's going to be Constance, Cornflower, and Matthias, who, honestly, Methuselah is kind of excited about learning more about the ancient text, or actually the ancient legend. So he goes like, hurry up now, hurry up you two so we can get to it. Chill, old man, you hurt. I like your enthusiasm, I'm not gonna lie, but chill, old man, you hurt. So as they are walking to the spot, we see Constance is leading the way. She appears to have remembered a spot back from when she was a little girl that could help solve the mystery of where Martin's sword could be. And as she's heading there, she sits here and tells Cornflower and Matthias that I hope this helps out because I worry for the future of Redwall. And she's worried because we can pan out and see pretty much what looks like shadows of rats lurking about in the distance. And when we get there, we see that the spot is kind of covered in vines and stuff like that. Also, funny enough, we learned this episode that apparently Constance has been at Redwall since she was a little girl. So that's a nice little tidbit information. So as we remove the vines, we see that there's a spot that the shield could be specifically placed in. As old man Methuselah gets up, he goes to seize the spot. He goes like, yes, this looks like the spot. So after that, he starts doing an old verse that pretty much explains where it should be at. So then old man Methuselah literally starts chanting an old verse from Martin's tomb. As he's chanting the verse, he has Matthias come over pretty much, which he then joins in and places the shield on that spot. After the verse is over, the moonlight comes down, shines on the shield, and then it points a spot where the sword could be at. So then we see that it's at the top of a roof, and they now know their next location to check. So at that point, Cornflower tried to explain to Matthias, no, don't be an idiot. We know that you're afraid of heights, so don't even try it. Let's see what's gonna happen next. Oh God, it's getting hot. So we shift over to morning, where we see Matthias getting ready to pretty much be Matthias and climb up the side of the building, or pretty much I should say scale the side of the building to get to the top where, I forgot what you call those little things again, where the sword could possibly be. As he starts scaling it, we shift over to old man Methuselah, who appears to be reading an old ancient text about where possibly the location of the sword could be and the history of it. In there, he starts talking about the swallowtails. Hold that thought, foreshadowing again. So, as Matthias starts climbing, old man Methuselah happens to look out the window and sees that, holy crap, he's climbing it. So, everybody rushes out, and they try to tell Matthias to come down and pretty much leave this to the professionals, like Jess the squirrel. So, eventually, Matthias does get to the top of the roof, but barely, and as he gets to the top, he starts getting attacked by a swallowtail. As he's getting attacked, the rain gutters literally start breaking apart, and as they're breaking apart, we see that everybody's like, Matthias, hurry up, come down. Basil's trying to give him words of encouragement as he's attempted trying to gain his balance because he's kind of losing, his footing. The rain gutters start breaking apart. It slowly starts coming down, and you see it being bent. And luckily, he wasn't hurt. He got down and, you know, he had his eyes closed. So Jess had to come over and pretty much explain to him, like, you can let go now. He goes like, oh, my bad. Oh, he said, oh, thank you. So, you know, Cornflower hugs him and said that was a very foolish thing that he tried to do. What were you thinking? You know, pretty much at the end of the day, they're all trying to explain to him, we got to work together as a team. So, at that point, which he did okay. But it still was reckless, though, because you could tell that he did good, but at the same time, though, he's not exactly like a squirrel. And you can see his balance was kind of weighing. But funny enough, this was a callback to episode 1 where it showed that he did have a fear of heights. So, bravo to the story. The author really did his thing with this. I'm not going to lie. So then that's when the squirrel started climbing and she tried to get to the top. During this whole interaction, we also learned that there are other creatures, which we knew, that live in Redwall. But some creatures in Redwall who've been residing there for a while are actually pretty hostile. So that kind of makes me wonder that I wonder if Redwall is broken up into different sectors. And those sectors kind of don't collaborate too much with each other. Not sure. As just the squirrel is climbing up to get to the top of Redwall, or to the rooftop, we see that Cornflower goes ahead and gives Matthias his breakfast and pretty much says, here's your breakfast, although you don't deserve it, which, again, she said it's his favorites. So he goes like, well, I guess I'll just go ahead and save these for later. And so Cornflower walks off. Jess eventually gets to the top, and as she gets to the top, we see that she begins to be attacked again by, I'm guessing earlier they didn't see that Matthias kind of got attacked a little bit, or not even attacked. I should say it's more of like, no, attacked. I guess they kind of just, you know, foregone that. But as we see it, we see that Jess gets attacked by not just one swallowtail this time, but multiple swallowtails. And I mean, they are coming at her. And this is the part where, in my opinion, they explained why they should have left this to the squirrel and not Matthias, because Matthias earlier kind of lost his footing a little bit. Jess, she's holding her own while not being too warned. Like, you know, someone who's done it's like walking a tightrope. She knows kind of her footing. She's in a more stable position, but you could tell she's not eagerly freaking out. But she's still being attacked. And this is all conjecture, though, honestly, with her not freaking out. But she starts getting attacked. And that's when Matthias and Baz were like, holy crap. So they run off to back her up. They grab some arrows and they're about to go and shoot the swallowtails and try to get them off of her so that way she doesn't hurt her. So that way she doesn't get hurt. So as they're getting ready to shoot, Old Man Monk comes through and says, no, don't hurt them. They're part of Redwall. And I'm like, did you tell them that? Sorry, man. The old monk, sometimes he comes in handy. In the long run, he very much comes in handy of being a pacifist. But at the same time, though, it drives me crazy. So Basil and Matthias go ahead and find a way to pretty much they break the tips of the arrows so that way it doesn't really hurt anybody, and they start shooting them. It looks like they're making sure they do enough to where it kind of backs them off, but make sure they're trying not to hit the swallowtails themselves. So as they're doing it, Matthias does hit a swallowtail. And the swallowtail comes down. He goes like, holy crap, that's my bad. So he runs over to catch the swallowtail to make sure it doesn't receive any further injury. Jess quickly comes down and is able to get to safety. And the swallowtail's back off. As she comes down, we then see Matthias trying to check on the swallowtail. As he's trying to check on the swallowtail, we kind of find out that the swallowtail still has some energy and it tries to attack Matthias, but luckily Cornflower captures it in a basket and calms him down. And Matthias says, like, I was just trying to check on it and it started attacking me. So Matthias checks on Jess and asks her, hey, was the sword up there? Jess said, I didn't see that the sword was up there. So Matthias, feeling down, they try to pretty much explain to him like, hey, listen, this is gonna take some time. So Basil takes Jess to get some breakfast. Old man Methuselah was the one that kind of patted him up. And then that's when an arrow came through with a piece of the tapestry. And Matthias pretty much renews his resolve and said, I will find that sword. Yeah. Okay, so we now get over to where Sunflower is trying to patch up the bird, which we eventually learned that the bird's name is Warbeak. Like, really? Good God, they're a clan of fighters. So we see that she's trying to patch it up, but every time she tries patching it up, it pretty much the bird is attacking her. And Matthias is laughing a little bit, chuckling like, "Hey, look, I told you the bird's feisty as heck." So that's when, you know, he's teasing her a little bit, and she says, "Okay, Mr. Know-it-all, you deal with the bird." And so then Matthias goes like, "Okay." So Matthias tries to talk to Warbeak. And when he tries to talk to Warbeak, Warbeak is giving off these little broken English sort of way the Swallowtails talk. Broken English of saying like, Warbeak, get you. Warbeak, make sure you pay. Make sure you crazy mouth pay. You know, things like that, to eventually alluding to the fact of the king will slice you up. Probably should stop talking about Warbeak. And that happens, Matthias says, slice you up, so the sword is up there. And when he hears that, he starts jumping around, all happy, and Warbeak is like, oh, you crazy, ain't you? Okay, then. So, eventually Matthias makes a deal with Warbeak that, hey, listen, if I can get you back home, you cannot attack me. So Warbeak says, all right, sure, sure, why not? If you can get me back home, and then we'll call it a deal. And so they shook on it. So we see Matthias start patching up. Meanwhile, we see Old Man Methuselah again checking on old Tex about Sparrowtails and everything like that. So we then shift back outside to where Matthias is, and he's wrapping himself up with rope. Then he ties up Warbeak to make sure they don't get separated. But it's more so that Warbeak just doesn't go off on Warbeak's own. So then they begin to climb. As they begin the climb, we see that Matthias' shoe then drops to the ground. And he goes like, whoa, that's a long drop. So eventually they get to the top. And when they get to the top, we see Warbeak pack off the rope that Matthias had tied with him, and then start calling for help. The Swallowtails come out. When the Swallowtails come out, we then see that, you know, they start attacking Matthias again, and they capture him. We're then introduced to Warbeak's mother, who looks like it's pretty much one of the generals, because they listen way too easily. So they grab Matthias, and they pretty much were going to lift him up into the sky, drop him. But as they dropped him, they caught him, and they said, you know what? I'm going to take you to the king. Yeah, to the king. So eventually the Swallowtails bring Matthias to their king. The king, who looks like, or I should say appears to be like a mad king, sort of lust for power. Just the way he comes across, even more hostile than the other Swallowtails. He pretty much explains, you Lander, or whatever it is, you come before me, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that's when Matthias said, like, look, I don't mean no harm, no nothing. And so the king sits here and says, we will pass judgment on you. You will perish. So Matthias, trying to talk with the king and reason with him, we see in the background Warbeak talking to her mother and explaining to her mother that, hey, listen, I'm okay. He actually never hurt me, or at least he made sure I was okay. Because as we know, he did technically hurt her. But overall, he did check on her and make sure that she was okay, because he didn't really mean to do it. So Warbeak's mother's like, oh, probably should fix this before your friend perishes. And as Matthias is sitting here talking with the king, he goes like, well, I brought you a snack. So he gives the breakfast treat that Cornflower gave him earlier, and gave it to the king to try to appease him, to get on his good side. So the king eats it, which are nuts, and he enjoys them. And so then he pretty much says, okay, cool. I give you 24 hours and we'll do it. Go ahead and get you tomorrow. Matthias is like, ah! So then there's that. We then switch back over to where Cornflower is in the yard and she sees the arrow with the piece of the tapestry that laid on the ground. She then shows this to Constance, and when she showed it to Constance and Basil, they both look and agreed that this, well, Basil pretty much said it, and Constance agreed that this was Clooney trying to get into their heads about, what's the word I'm looking for, that they had the tapestry and try to lower their morale. And Constance's idea was, let's ignore it. And that's a good idea. Let's ignore it. That's at the end of the day, it's not going to do anything for us. And don't tell Matthias because he gets worked up about this stuff. So they all agreed. So as they leave, Cornflower notices that Matthias' shoe was missing, and she looks up and figured, oh, this guy right here. And so then she goes over to talk to them and explain what has happened. We then switch back over to the Swallowtails, and we see that Warbeak's mother comes up to the king, and she speaks to the king that there's a poisonous worm that has left his dwelling, and now it's the time to do what we need to do. You know, again, broken English, all this other stuff, so you kind of piece it together. Personal opinion, I didn't think about too much into it, but I think you guys can understand what a poisonous worm they're talking about. King pretty much acknowledges the information, and he pretty much explains to Warbeak's mother that, hey, listen, remember this. I will keep you and your daughter safe as long as you remain loyal to me. Warbeak's mother reminds the king that, listen, you're the one that got my husband unalived because your quest to get this sword. We find out that apparently that pretty much Warbeak is probably next in line, if not after the mother, to proceed. So Warbeak is royalty in a way. And that's when the king got set off and went off on him. And, you know, again, I believe he said, like, well, you make sure you stay loyal. And then Warbeak's mother pretty much bowed and left. So that's when they went ahead and mobilized the troops, or I should say the king mobilized the troops to head on out to the poisonous worm's dwelling. As that happened, Warbeak comes out and attempts to go to talk to the Redwall residents to explain the situation, but the Redwall residents are trying to figure out a way to get Matthias back. And then that's when Warbeak goes back, and we see Warbeak play a little prank saying, like, it's time. And Matthias like, I am ready. Oh, all this time we also saw, or I forgot to mention this, but earlier, Matthias happened to see that the sheath to the sword was at the top. Anyway, back to the story. So we see that Matthias was ready for his looming end, but that's when Warbeak said, I'm just messing with you. And Matthias was like, not funny, dude. And, you know, Warbeak lets him out and apologize, and, you know, they pretty much become friends, saying like, hey, look, I'm not used to friends, and, you know, I can see us, you know, maybe in the future we can go on adventures and have big battles and stuff like that. Clearly you could tell that these birds, they're ready to fight. You know what? Bump this. Let me see if this will work. Oh, it did. We see that as they're escaping, that Warbeak explains the situation to Matthias, that the truth went out to the poisonous worm's lair to try to receive, pretty much to see the poisonous worm's lair. We then see that Matthias starts putting two to two together. It's that poisonous worm. You mean the snake, which means Asmodeus has the sword. Which, again, great callback. I'm not going to lie. The writing on this for a kid's show, in my opinion, is great writing. So after Matthias puts it together, Asmodeus has a sword, we then see that they're still escaping, and Matthias makes sure that he promises, well, Warbeak says, like, hey, I'll catch you later. Hopefully we have great battles in the future, like earlier explained. Matthias says, hopefully we do. And so as he's escaped, he grabs the scabbard. As he grabs the scabbard, here goes Martin. Matthias. I'm sorry, Martin. I'd be like, dude, either you're going to help me or you're going to be quiet. But Matthias is nicer than me. So Matthias says, I hear you, Martin, and I'm going to try my best. So eventually Matthias gets to the outside of the rooftop. When he gets to the outside rooftop, we see that the residents have gotten just the squirrel to come out. What looks to be like things to stab into the wall to get better footing. So she comes out and they start climbing. So Matthias sees Jess and Jess starts climbing up to the top. And as she starts climbing, Warbeak had explained it earlier, but apparently there's a very heavy wind draft. So Matthias' footing is not the best right about now. So Cornflower, being worried because of the heavy winds, she tries going behind Jess, but Basil stops her and says, like, what did we say earlier? Let's leave it to the professionals. Ah, she worries about him, which she worries about everybody, but you can also see that she truly does hope for the best in everything will work out, and I like that. So as that's happening, we see the Swallowtails attempt to go to Asmodeus' lair, but they find out that Asmodeus did not leave. He is still there and fighting strong. So the king finds out, treachery. So the king goes back knowing that the Warbeak's mother lied to him. And as they come back, Jess is still climbing, or eventually gets there, and we see that the Swallowtails have came back. When the Swallowtails have come back, we see that the king attacks Matthias, and he grabs the scabbard. Matthias, not wanting to let go, ends up flying away with the king. You know, they're tussling in the air, which Matthias is not letting go. At some point, the king loses his strength and lands in a fountain. The residents seeing this are worried. They go like, holy crap, Masters. Constance quickly calls up one of the otters. They're like, I forgot what the otter's name is. And I like that they give everybody names. So Constance calls one of the otters to round up the men to go into the pond and start looking for Matthias. Apparently that must be a big pond. So Basil and Constance go also looking into the pond. Or I'm saying a pond, it's a fountain, my bad. It's a fountain for Matthias. We see Matthias at the bottom of the fountain underneath a rock. He's losing consciousness. And that's when we see a hand reach out for him as he kind of lost consciousness. Nope, I'm doing this again. So as they manage to pull him up, we see Matthias unconscious and pretty much not responding. So they start giving him resuscitation, you know, pump it on the stomach, try to get him, at least the old monk is. So the old monk tries to pump out the water of him, and eventually Matthias wakes up and he goes like, oh, Cornflower, because that's the first sight he sees. And Cornflower says, yes, Matthias. He goes like, the scabbard. And that's when Cornflower says, we have the scabbard. And don't worry, the sword will come next. And Matthias also says like, yeah. And with that, thankfully, we have new friends up in the air. And it shows the Swallowtails kind of guiding through. I'm guessing the king might not have made it. I'm guessing that's what they're alluding to. And I guess the friends of Warbeak will now have her back. Or maybe he did make it. I'm not sure. They kind of left that ambiguous. But overall, God, son of a gun, it was good. Woo! That was a good episode. I have no complaints about it. Redwall fits like a glove in storytelling. Nothing seems like it's out of nowhere. Clues are put down. Things are connecting. Things that will be relevant in later on the episode. They make sure to put it early on so you can follow along. I won't lie. Like I said, for a kid's show, this is good. This is really good. The plot is good. The pacing is well. Of course, it's still a kid's show, so of course you gotta keep it light and easy. But honestly, I've said this before. I think it was a British guy who made this show. Them Brits know how to write a good show. Those Brits know how to write a good action series. I won't even lie. It gives the lore to everything. And to make it seem like everybody is truly involved in everything, I'm just loving it more and more. So that's my thoughts. Overall, I have to say, I give it a good, not a fire watch. I give it a good sit down watch because it was more lore building and eventually getting to a resolution to finding the sword. So I'm gonna give it a good watch, not a fire watch. Fire watch means it blew it out the park. For me, this was a good watch. I can't let my feelings get the better of me. Good watch. Again, it's a good show. It's a good to kind of carry on to the next episode or what we have to do next. So our heroes are getting closer to getting the sword. Honestly, I truly feel like, what's the purpose of the sword? Like, we know Matthias is the chosen one, and I know it's to build morale, but it truly feels like you don't really need the sword. Like, everything you need is in here, and Matthias is the answer to Clooney. But I guess most residents wouldn't see that. They'll feel more comfortable if they see the sword in Matthias' hand. But I'm looking forward to the next episode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me your thoughts, comments below. And like I would say this, please watch the show. And if you have kids, recommend it to them. Sit down and watch it and then talk to them about it. Like, this is a good family show. And it's not like it's just mindless thought process. It's literally a intriguing, it's drama, it's truly, I could say, engaging. So when you get a chance, enjoy it, watch it. Maybe the kids won't like it these days, who knows, but you won't know until you sit down and maybe you all watch it as a family. But I'll catch y'all later and see you soon. Peace.